Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Conspiracy. We have myself, Mr. Andrew, and my lovely co-host, as usual, Mr. Do, and we are here to conspire with you all. And as per the usual, got a new breathwork technique. This one's called Sitali Pranayama, and it's known as the cooling breath. And it's very simple. You kind of roll your tongue a little bit and inhale through the rolled tongue, and then exhale through the nose. And it's cooling your tongue, that air rushing over it. So we'll go ahead and try that a few rounds. Let's do 5 rounds of that. Let's get crazy. Okay. So go ahead and get he wiggles out.
I've always had trouble rolling my tongue, Andrew. I got to admit,
Is that like a genetic thing?
I think it is. I've heard that it is. It's something like.
Well, I think as long as you can put the tongue out just a little bit and get some air rushing over it, as long as you feel some sort of a cooling sensation in your tongue, I think you succeeded. So, all right, let's go and close down the eyes, get comfy, and if you, as much as of a tube as you can make with your tongue, the better. And we'll go ahead and inhale through the tongue, and out through the nose, and in through the tongue. Deep breaths, and out through the nose. 3 more. One more. There we go. Satali, do you feel extra cool?
And what's the purpose of cooling the tongue? And what was there like a stated purpose or?
Not really. I mean, the cooling sensation, if you feel it, might feel nice. And, anytime you're taking a conscious breath, you're activating parasympathetic, calming the vagus nerve. I mean, the usual thing. So it's just variation, mixing it up, and I suppose the resistance of the airflow through the tongue to kind of having to pull just that little bit harder with your lungs. But
Plus the shame of not being able to roll your tongue.
well, that's on you, bro. You don't have to feel shame for that. That's
Well, thank you very much, and hi everybody. It's Mr. Do,
Oh,
and this
happy Eclipse Day. We're recording this on Saturday the 20th, and we're what, 20 minutes away?
I think about 20 minutes away from the height of it's not a full solar eclipse. It's like 60% partial, but the sun is right out here, so we should be able to see it somewhat. But yeah, so it's a solar eclipse, and 2 weeks ago there was a lunar eclipse, and tomorrow is the equinox, and there's a 0 point on Aries with Pisces, and all sorts of astrological machinations going on. But the fact is that
I know our friend Kat is probably in heaven right now. So
she said she was going to miss a couple of meetings because she was like going to be so busy with this
yeah,
astrology.
she's like a genius when it comes to astrology, and we have the pleasure of chatting with her a couple times a month usually. So
Right, but
yeah,
anyway, and then there's the equinox on the 22nd. But our big news, and this is what I said, prepare for the live, is on Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Do Andrew Conspiracy is going to go live to be able to moderate and measure what effect we might be having not only on our audience but also on reality, because that's the focus of our show today. What is reality and how did we distinguish it and everything. But the fact is that in my mind, in Dale's world, and at the suggestion of my honored co-host Andrew, on Wednesday we're beginning a whole new era, a whole new calendar. We're beginning the AD period of history will be over, and we'll be moving into the after Fred time, which, if you want to sort of get an idea, apocalyptic idea what after Fred is, read Brave New World. But we're bringing you Brave New World, so it's going to be completely different. But it all starts on Wednesday with the live, when we will kick off year 0 AF with the first day of the due calendar, the 9-month, 40, 41, 40-day calendar that I created. That God basically downloaded me about 20 years ago, that we're resurrecting, and our new calendar goes into effect on Wednesday, and we're going to welcome the age AF, so that the warlord is dead. After endless ages of battle, they'll reduce the warlord to Fred, and now Fred is dead. So, with that in mind, I'll just read my poem, and then we can jump into our discussion. But this is called Thoughts Between the Double Eclipse, and it goes, I am at the center of a convergence of timelines from infinity, creating a new omniverse of archetypes and ideal creatures, once more realized within the lens of the possibility that Gaia presents in the Dale, forever suspended between Alpha and Omega, which is judgment both on and after earthly existence, extending into the horizon of the infinite. So basically, that's a poem to kick off AF, because excuse me, I have to mute myself because my
Well, I got a quote too. Then while you're doing that, since we're digging into this concept of what is real, I got to bust out the quote from the probably one of my favorite top three favorite movies, maybe my favorite, The Matrix. And Morpheus sits down with Neo, and Neo asks, "Is this real?" And Morpheus responds, "What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain."
Exactly, that kicks off exactly what we were going to talk about. Like, to what degree is real? Well, I think I brought this up last show, but I'll just reiterate this. This is my own definition of reality, which is reality is the creativity left in the wake of your dreams.
Wow, that's cool. I like that.
And absolute reality is the ultimate narcissistic fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like they're. Well, I guess when you're really immersed in the 3D and everything seems sort of straightforward and black and white, maybe absolute reality is like something you really believe strongly in, or that you already have some grasp of,
Right.
or something like that, right? But yeah, the further you untether from the illusion, the less that feels possible.
Well, if you take the analogy of the of an ocean line, you're going to the ocean as reality, the creativity left in the wake of your dreams, then absolute reality, the ultimate narcissistic fantasy, is the destination of the ocean liner.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Well, we all know it's more about the journey than it is the
But
destination.
and it is about the journey. But this brings up what we were to what degree is reality generated by other people or by external realities or sources, and ultimately everything comes from within. But to what degree does perception tell you the truth about what is reality. Because obviously, what you directly perceive with your five senses is reality. That's your now reality. But you're also const- everyone in this modern world is constantly exposed to like images, ideas, thoughts, even just like ideas coming from the ether that infiltrate their head that aren't reality, but they can interpret that, and that's part of the domestication that Ruiz talked about in the Four Agreements. You know, that agreement to domesticate yourself. So, and accept these images that are beyond your perception of five senses as real.
Yeah, yeah. It's something kind of random, but I was watching YouTube the other night, and it was this little, mini podcast about why no people use like the Panama Canal instead of going through the Drake Strait, I believe it's called, and basically, he had this whole spiel about how dangerous it is and how hard it is to get there, and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, how could I possibly know if this is true or fiction, right? Like
Right.
outside of actually traveling to that place, sort of without some sort of preconceived notion of what it is, how can I truly experience it? And I think we we're with this modernity, this age we're in, where we have screens to show us so many things. I have felt myself sort of losing some attachment to reality because this becomes real when inherently we know it's not, or at least it has tremendous, like, it's vulnerable to manipulation, and in the age of AI, very vulnerable to
Right.
manipulation. And so, like, this just, I don't know. I think we got to see it as what it is, as a TV show, or something fictionist, because buying into it feels like so risky or something like that.
Right. Well, yeah, this is a thought that came to me, and it might seem sort of random, but basically, so we have a reality system that that works pretty well. You know, it's based upon money. Maybe it doesn't work so well, but however, we have a system, however well you think it works, and that system, in the analogy that Napoleon Hill used in like Think and Grow Rich, just think about your morning breakfast. Yeah, I mean, this is when Americans ate real breakfasts, but he said, in order to get the ingredients just for like say milk, eggs, and cereal and an orange and some juice or something, you would have to like basically travel like 5,000 miles to get the individual ingredients, to bring it back to your breakfast table. So that means there is a system that's set up, and that system is based upon reality because we see it working. But when it comes to perception, and what we let ourselves think and believe, that's a whole different situation because it can be totally manufactured by clever, whether you want to call them, like programmers or propagandists or whatever. You can be it can be easily manipulated is the point.
Yeah. Well, the biggest programmers aren't, in my opinion, are not doing it from a nefarious perspective. They're just operating off their own programming. They're looping their own stuff, and they're often referred to as parents and teachers. and
Right, right.
and and they're, if unless you're bringing a high level of consciousness to your parenting, you're operating off of a program, and it was given to you largely by your parents and your opinion about how you grew up, and then you take that. So that's perception. Is like, how are we, how the programs are shaping the perception. I mean, neuroscience, there's a lot behind that too, right? Your parts of your brain are filtering out the information that's coming in because it's coming in at such a high bandwidth, high bit rate from all the senses.
Right.
You can't feel all, you can't experience every sense at the same time. It gets overwhelming. People with ADHD claim that they experience a lot of their sensations all at once, and
Well,
it's overwhelming.
that's what psychosis is, Andrew.
Sure.
That's where your brain is just overwhelmed with by the lack of filters that have been by the filters that have been destroyed, letting all this information in that's impossible to process in a human body, and therefore people's that's basically what psychosis is. So I understand exactly what you're talking about.
So inherently, we have a filter system, and it seems to serve us for the most part, given the limitations of this current experience, a limitation of the body, I guess. And so, okay, we know that's true. I mean, like inherently, that seems to be real. And so by that it also means that we're selecting what to allow. We, the subconscious, the brain, is selecting what is important information and what is not important information, and then filtering it for us. And that those judgments, those values, are largely determined by our experiences early in life, and other sort of things that we end up agreeing with as beliefs throughout our life. And so, you take these things on as a part of yourself, and they start to pile up, and now they are defining how you perceive what is real.
Right. Well, I don't want to lose this thought because I think it's important. But what we're talking about is the filters in the brain. But the filters, what you're talking about is the filters are set up when we're very young through our parents and our experiences as young kids. So, but I think it's important to realize that, it's possible to change the parameters of the filters that we have in our brain, so to allow in more, quote, enlightened or higher aware, higher consciousness thoughts that are now being suppressed by the 3D just because of the paradigm of the filters they're operating under.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. And so I guess it's like this interesting mix of all those things. I mean, we call this a consensus reality. I feel like that's true, for better or worse. That's my current understanding, I should say. And so there is an element of collective involved, and then there is our own filter, right? And you can tell very easily by talking to other people that they are filtering reality differently than you are, right?
Right.
We are experiencing the exact same event, and we have a different perception of it. And so if that's happening for everyone, no two people have the exact same experience in this place.
Correct.
And so what is real starts to get real shaky at that point, because it seems like the old paradigm was there was certain people who we decided could determine what we were allowed to experience. Yes,
Right.
no? And so we're effectively taking on their dream as a part of ours and letting their dream dictate ours. That feels like giving
Right.
away your power to me. That feels like the old paradigm. That feels like, and it creates a lot of stress and anxiety and frustration and like this repression, and then it all kind of bursts out, and we see that in these conflicts, and division and war and blah blah
Right.
blah. So, I mean, to me, that represents like super high level, like the old thing. And then what is the new thing? To me, the new thing is just operating with that knowledge that everyone is having a different experience, and that's okay.
Right. Right.
They don't have to have they don't have to be having my experience. I don't need to impose my experience on anyone else.
Right.
And until their experience, you know,
Until they try to force it on their experience on me.
there you go. There you go.
And I understand. I agree with you completely. And when I wrote actually a little thing in Gabby's group today about the warrior, and basically how Gabby talks about like the divine feminine and how that's been suppressed, but the divine masculine has been equally suppressed by this by what I call the mindset of the warlord, where where the worth of a man, where a real man is the greater warrior you are, the greater man you are, and this is like come down since ancient times, I mean, and I'm speaking as Achilles, to Fred, I feel I'm a great, feel I'm the greatest warrior, but ultimately, um, you know, warriors in history are the cement between the higher levels, the aristocracy and the royalty, and the people. It is through the warriors that the will of the higher ups is enforced to the people, and therefore, what I feel I came up with a good motto today about what I'm doing instead of duck versus muck. I call it the God Mafia versus the Kingdom Department of Justice. And but basically, uh, this whole idea of warrior being, worthiness being a warrior. That's very
I would go one step further and say the old paradigm is soldier. And a
right.
soldier takes orders, it executes them. They're just, doing their job. To me, the warrior has like this. It's separate. It's more independent. It has more. What's the word?
Yeah, but I mean,
Sovereignty.
just to take an example, in samurai Japan, the samurai were the warrior class, but they were like absolutely subservient to their higher ups. And what I'm saying is, what's happened is that the divine masculine warriors, the ones who have survived up to this point, to the point of after Fred, are the divine masculines who have that warrior spirit and mindset, but also the heart of the poet, which just is like a alternate archetype,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the lover, or the lover for that matter,
Well, I think what we're talking about is a balanced human, a balanced
Right.
man in this case, a one that is can hold it all, and whether you want to define it as masculine or feminine, they can understand and hold the various emotions. And the suppression looked a lot like emotions are bad or they make you weak
Right.
or something like that, right? And so, a lot of young men, boys are told to stop feeling, stop expressing, stop crying, and so that's how I've seen it manifest in my personal experience as those are programs now that are in that young boy, young man's mind, and it says, "Oh, I'm feeling something. I can't actually express that. I'm not safe to express that. So I'll go ahead and just stuff that shit down, bottle it up, and we'll save it for later. And it manifests as this thing, this distortion that we've experienced up until, well, now. And so, there's this opportunity. Like, I think that's part of the feminine rising that she's talking about, is literally just a man's ability to feel, because that's how you stay centered in yourself without storing up all this, bottling up all this energy that create, it expends a tremendous amount of energy, like they talk about in the Four Agreements, but it is also like it creates a certain amount of like tension and stress in the body, like almost that fight or flight mode, right? And it ends up manifesting as disease at some point. I mean, that's been my experience anyway.
Well, I'm not. This isn't like this is a discussion and it's not an argument, but basically, I'm taking it to a more primitive level, to to the basic human foundational level, the primitive human foundational level. Males have always had to be ready to kill. So, uh, I mean, whether it's for the family, for food, going back, no matter how far back you go, ultimately, males had to be ready to kill to protect their family and their woman. So therefore, you know, this is like so deeply embedded in ourselves, going back to the very foundation of beyond civilization, just like awareness, that ultimately that's what we're talking about when we talk about the mindset of the warlord. Is this idea that I can't get beyond this need to kill. And that's what I'm talking about, a warrior. A warrior is always ready to kill, but you have to get beyond the warrior to the king or the poet or the lover to be able to really manifest the divine masculine. And that's the journey of every male. Ultimately, that's the male's hero's journey, is to go from that like primordial killer to the primordial beyond the saint. Just to the ultimate warrior who I feel was incarnated through Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that Christ consciousness to me has been super informative. It's a different perspective to view the world through, and you're right, it's not weak. It's not. It's ready, but it also understands that there's a better way, and leans into to exploring the world from that perspective, the perspective of love and connection to all that is. And
And
go ahead.
I guess what I sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I guess what I'm saying is that I feel that the divine masculine that that's reflected in Gabby's become awareness of the divine feminine. The divine masculine is becoming aware is the warriors who have survived the who have survived the battles of the warlord and are now ready to retire in peace and security rather than in battle and insecurity.
Maybe sometimes I think you might be projecting a little bit on that one. I mean, it's very tied into your experience.
Right. And
I
and
just don't see myself as a fighter. I've never seen myself as a fighter. It's never been part of my persona. So I don't. That's a separation between you and I. Uh,
right, right.
yeah, I don't know. I just let the world do what it does, and I don't feel any responsibility to intervene with violence or any other way. To be quite frank, and, I mean, as a young child, I defended myself against bullies. That's the closest. And I suppose there was like a boyish violence, like I shot a BB gun at a bird and killed it, right? Like
It felt
that.
terrible, right?
Well, afterwards, yeah. So So, but so I guess if that's kind of what you're pointing to, then I suppose there is a thread of that. It's just so insignificant in the totality of my personality historically.
I just want to say I appreciate exactly what you're saying, and that's why I feel I'm like growing so much so quickly with this podcast is because I've been, I was basically forced into an adversarial, basically World War situation in 1975 that's taken me 50 years to get out of. And you say that my positivity is a projection, but I also know that I'm totally Dale after 50 years of delusion. So the optimism and the positivity is based upon a reality that I've been through. And it's a reality that no one else can I don't think ever really conceive of like how deep it was. But this battle that I've been fighting and which I feel like is now complete with the death of Fred and is sealed in victory was a battle against uh well, as I said, the God Mafia, the people who would control the world through the use of God, as opposed to those who are for freedom, for the freedom of the kingdom of Jesus, and understand that there is no control ultimately except what you give yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is the paradigm shift, right? It feels like control versus freedom. I don't know how else to put it. And, you know, it is sort of amazing to me how deeply embedded those programs are, right? I mean, I suggested that we didn't need as much supervision, if we want to call it that, from the government, whatever the fuck that is, and some of my older relatives like just lost it. Like that. No, that is not compute. I need these people I don't trust to tell these other people I don't trust what to do, and I was just like the absurdity of it all just is kind of mind blowing. So I guess I don't know. It's less deeply seated theoretically. The less you've been a part of this experience, right? That's or at least that's one measure of it. And so I have a lot of hope that the newer generations are coming in and having a different experience, and that is expanding and allowing for expansion in ways that haven't existed prior because we're not the survival mode thing is tired. It's not real. I mean, we're talking about what's real and what is real. Like it everything we seem to be learning is that this is frequency and light collapsing into what we perceive as solid. So
My,
that
my
would mean
real
none of it is real. Zero of it is real.
my meal is I have 3 cans of Chef Boyardee beefaroni and and a can of peanut butter jelly and peanut butter and jelly to get me through the next week. But I'm not worried because the Lord provides.
Well, again, that that is your reality, but I believe that can change also, Mr. Dale, Mr. Do.
Right.
I think greater things are possible, and so
Well,
let's.
I am definitely counting on it. That, but but you said, what is my reality? And I say, United people, if you want to, but plant yourself in Dale. Just look at your feet and imagine that there's a bubble around you and say, this is, oh my Dale, or I am Dale, and just say where you are. Just reality orient yourself like that and take a breath or two. So my feet are in the duck nest in Teaneck, Hackensack City, doing a podcast with Andrew at 2:49 on the day of the eclipse, and that's what my deal is. And then, and then you can go from there. But you can go Dale to Dale, and so that's that's really what the secret is, one Dale at a time. But actually, what I guess what my whole point is that you know we're seeing it, we have seen a convergence, and this is what you said. The old system isn't collapsing; it has collapsed. I mean, the old world is dead. Fred is dead. And the sooner people realize this, the happier it's going to be, and there's less conflict, and more harmonies there's going to be. But, I always respect Gabriella, and I love her group, and, and that type of family situation where higher awareness is the norm. I think it's going to become much more of a common thing, especially with the age of Aquarius and community and everything. And I think the old system is collapsed, and the divine masculine and the divine feminine are actually just sort of like crossing the bridge to meet in the middle, to sit down to have tea, to talk about what life really is about rather than about the conflicts and, you know, which is more suppressed, the feminine or the masculine.
Right. Yeah. It's not a competition. No one wins that one anyway. And you're right. I think I've been saying the same thing for a long time too. Oh, it's the masculine needs to rise up for this to happen, or the feminine needs. No, it's all of us working together. I mean, it's so obvious. I don't. It's like one more. Like, can we just stop with like the division already? We don't need to divide anything. That's the whole point. Embodying oneness is what this is about. That's what this experience is about. And we come into this world, we forget all the things, we go through our programming. Maybe that, I don't know, that's been historically true. Maybe that shifts in the new paradigm also. But the point is, you come out and then you get to take this journey with the help of our fellow humans to remember who you are and come back to what is true. And so it's like this journey off into the wilderness and then back to something that, actually looks like the kingdom. And
And and I just so I just want to say that it's not my role to fight demons anymore. I mean, when I was God, that was my role, but now I'm not God anymore, and demons are God will take care of the demons, and I'm just like living in Teaneck, Hackensack City, and I had a revelation when I was walking outside. Yesterday I was just like walking, and I'm up same old buildings and everything, but I'm like looking at the people on the street, and I'm saying everything is absolutely new. Everything that I perceive now is new for this moment. Whether and I have the physical structure of Teaneck, Hackensack City to exist in, so I don't have to worry about that melting, which used to be a big problem when I was psychotic. That everything would just like vanish and everything. So I know that the concrete structure is real, and therefore what I see with my perception is the unfolding of the new. And that's all that really exists in any moment for me. And therefore I don't have to worry about the rest of the world, but ultimately I do, because my presence is becoming a rainbow nuclear cloud, and it's just like encompassing the world at this point, like an atom bomb. But the new that I perceive is what is real, and that's all I can know. That's all anybody can know. I mean, what you can see when you walk outside, when you're Dale and you're walking down the street, that's all you can know.
yeah, I guess my only counter to that is to ask yourself, what are the stones that you're dropping into your pool of awareness?
Right.
Um, because that's what renders the reality for you. It's what creates the possibilities. As our friend Pete says, that your thoughts today create the possibilities for tomorrow. So today's Dale is creating possibilities for tomorrow's Dale,
It,
and
it's reflected in the perception that you have. If you see like two beautiful women walking down the street that you've never seen before, then you know it's working.
yep, correct. Yes. Well, that's a beautiful thing we can do. And what I guess at the end of the day, does it matter if it's real or if it's electrical signals or what it is? It's an experience, and
Right.
we're having it, and we've brought down awareness that there is a density to this experience. But that's why we're here. We're here to experience that, and
Right.
also to remember that we're more than this experience. There is something beyond this experience, and and it allows me to operate within this experience with a greater level of peace, and less. I'm not caught up. I'm not not reactionary. I mean, I think that's
Right.
peace is sort of synonymous with being not reactionary. But to me, then that becomes the reality that I prefer. I prefer that, and so reality is seeking what you prefer. I mean, the act of pursuing reality is, and so that's decided through the various sensory inputs that we are able to take in, and it also comes from how well we can sort of maintain this body, the
And
device.
just add a third thing is 3D is a frequency grid. So we're all frequencies. So I mean that brings a whole new level into it because reality, according to everybody says like frequencies attract each other. So therefore, if it's a frequency grid, then if you're in a reality you don't like, you're attracting that reality, and that's an accountability and a responsibility that a lot of people don't like when take advan take care of, and
Yeah.
but it's
Well, that's how the trip
important.
starts, right? You take that first hit, and all of a sudden you start to lose, especially good psychedelic. You start to lose some of that grip on this, and then you get some separation. But it is sort of like it feels uncomfortable, especially the first time, because there's like this level of like exposure, and also just like you're fighting it. I mean, that was my experience. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I couldn't let go of
Right,
this, and so part of it is just an attachment to this, right? Like uh, spirituality would be that this isn't all there is. So I don't need to be so attached to every single event or every single phrase that someone utters at me. Like most, I don't need to get attached to it. I don't need to identify with it. I'm
right,
I'm bigger than this experience. I'm here to have the experience though, and that's the dance. I think for me is like, yeah, to play in this and let it be dense, and do human things and go for hikes and go snowboarding, or go for a walk in the park, whatever it is that this experience allows, and appreciate it for what it is, but then also not get caught up in the external reality so much, because that's their experience. That's how
right.
I don't know. I'm in this narcissistic bubble for sure, but I'm like I don't need to worry about it, but I also don't need to like I don't maybe directly benefit from it, or I do to the extent that like the collective vibration impacts mine. How about that? And so the collective matters, but I think the collective is risen by the journey within. That's kind of
Right.
where I'm at as far as what's
And
real.
the more light you emanate, the more light goes into the world, and the more the awareness arises with everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I did feel this need to like save the world, kind of like you, I think, for a long time. Um, and now I'm just like I'm gonna love whoever I actually come in contact with because I can't save the world. I mean, not in actions, not in 3D. I can't, I'm not going over to like resolve conflicts or some shit like that. I'm still doing me. I'm still here, and so those become like this. I don't know. It is weird, right? Like the age we're living in. I can't even imagine 50, 100 years ago when that information was so much slower to transmit, right?
Right, right.
I mean, maybe you can speak to that,
I,
but
I,
like,
I could do a whole show on that, but and the lost art of telephone conversations. That's one of my favorite subjects. But
what was the
uh,
biggest piece of technology to come in when you were like a kid?
telephone
Telephone.
and television. Well, television predate. I was born in '55, so I came in just when television was like starting to take off, and then telephone technology like expanded exponentially in like the first, from 55 to 65. So basically, the telephone was like the lifeline of everybody, and
Yeah.
so it was but there was some uh oh no there was something I was going to say about um oh well, but so yeah, the telephone. So I really miss the telephone. I meant I to me the telephone I used to say was for the transmission of punchlines and to like basically re to replant people in Dale through the telephone line. So I mean we're very grounded here, and we have telephone conversations. And I don't know if you noticed this, but basically we're very grounded here on camera. But when I'm talking to you on the phone, I speak. This especially used to be true when I didn't realize how powerful I was. I would like swear like take people on trips through my phone calls. I mean, they'd pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Dale," and by the end of the conversation, they'd be in a completely different Dale. And so I call that the lost art of phone conversation, and I really miss it. But you know, and I really wish I could remember what I was going to say. There was something important to say, but can't
It'll
remember.
come. It'll come. That's how that works. Well, yeah. So what? I guess basically the technology that we use to experience reality has changed
Right.
dramatically, and that creates new possibilities theoretically, and theoretically that's what we're witnessing. Is like the ability for information to move more quickly is a double edged sword, right? And
Right.
but we're looking at the sharp side we like, and that is that it allows us to connect and share ideas that wouldn't have been possible, or it would have looked a lot different a
Right.
long
Right.
time ago. And so we can connect virtually. I mean, Dale and I are opposite sides of the country, basically, and and so that distance would have been a huge hurdle at some point, and now it's not. So cool. But then the ultimate end is where does this go? Like, I mean, I don't tend to be like a real predictive type person, but I can't help but speculate now once in a while. Like, does the pendulum
That,
swing back? Does it continue at infinitum, and technology just becomes like this central point in some people's lives? I mean, it already is, right? Like the phone is already like
right. Right.
and
Right.
so. And I'm
Well,
feeling that deeply. Like to master consciousness is to master your attention, and that's my new challenge because it is. it feels like challenging.
Right, right. Well, uh, in answer to that, as I said last show, in an age where science is God, Dale is the only absolute. I also say in an age where AI is God, Dewey Death is the only absolute because, you know, and um, fact is that reality is shifting, it's morphing, but that's why I just encourage people to go day by day. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I said last time we've moved from history, which is from history to my story to mystery. And what my story is mystery, and that's what Dale to Dale is. I never know from moment to moment, from Dale to Dale, what's going to happen, but I'm secure in my reality, and I'm sure that nothing is going to endanger my security or the concreteness of my reality that I live in. Whether I'm not talking about in Gaza or anything, I'm talking about in Teaneck, Hackensack City. I feel secure. So basically, that's really what reality is really all about: is being secure in yourself, and rather than worry about what's coming up, just embrace the mystery of my
Yeah,
story.
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, that is the point of living dale to dale. Is I don't need to worry about tomorrow. I just need to be here now, where I actually have power, and there's a lot of beauty in that for sure, and truth too, right? Like I didn't realize how much of my life I spent not in it until kind of going through this awakening process and yeah you want to if you want to play the game you have to be in it. You can't be floating off in the past or
Can't be a spectator.
dreaming of the future constantly. Yeah, correct. So real is now. That's as close as we're gonna get to anything real. And real isn't real, but that's not the point. We don't need it to be. the The point is to enjoy the simulation, even if it's
Right.
fake, right? Enjoy that you can. The simulation allows you to do the human things that we can do, and then also, from my experience, my joy is testing the limits of what
Right.
people think is possible, right?
Well,
Um, and expanding the field of possibility in this consensus reality.
well, my joy is seeing what the stimulation will allow me to actually create.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
and that's why I say deal to deal, because I never know what the next month, what blessing, what miracle, whatever, what manifestation will come in the next moment. But but I live a 24-hour day existence like everybody else, and every dawn is a new Dale, and if you keep that in mind, then it really like makes possible living in the now, where the past is a memory carried by thought through time.
Yeah, yeah.
And that reminds me, we haven't had our Sid for the day, so
We better get us
uh,
it.
let's see what Sid has to say. So there's a new chapter. It's called Mind. So this is where he goes into a greater discussion of mind, consciousness, and thought. So mind, and this is italicized. Every human mind has direct access to its experience here on Earth, and the human mind always has access to its own spiritual roots from which it came. The universal mind emphasized, or impersonal mind, is constant and unchangeable. The personal mind is in perpetual state of change. All humans have the inner ability to synchronize their personal mind with their impersonal mind to bring harmony into their lives. So this dovetails perfectly into what we're talking about how there's the impersonal mind, which you can call the mind of God, source, whatever, and that's constant. And then there's the personal mind, which is the individual human beings and how they think. And the goal is to merge the personal with the impersonal mind, and that's what Sid is talking about when he talks about attaining wisdom.
Yeah, and to me that feels like Christ consciousness, or at least that's a term that I use that seems in alignment with that. And yeah, to tune in to source, to use the device to connect, right? And as our little antenna receiving the signals, and then bring that into, like you said, that personal mind. Was that the other one?
Well, there's impersonal mind, which is mind of source, and
Yeah,
then personal mind, which is the individual.
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, it's just the dance of that and the dance with source. I mean, I think that's sort of what it boils down to at its essence, and then also like just the fact that we're here and Earth is a beautiful place to be when you choose to perceive it as such.
And the other thing is that you know, well, Sid's always talking about the form growing out of formlessness. So basically, as I see it, you can like conceive of the impersonal mind as the formless, out of which all personal thought, i.e., form, individual participation, grows.
Yeah. Okay.
But in that scenario, uh, you'd be hard pressed to argue that there's not some sort of like objective reality.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go around and around on this for a while, I'm sure, but I just don't know how you could possibly have an objective reality when everyone is filtering it through their own experience. It means that someone is right, but
Right,
no,
right.
that's not true. That's definitely not true. And
But
God isn't dictating our experience. I mean, that's I guess you're coming back to like that whole free will versus like sort of predestination kind of a vibe too,
right,
and
but that that's true. But well, okay. So you talked about consensus reality, and I just I know we're talking to almost up, but basically, so how I think a consensus reality is how I used to think about when I would travel. Every house has doors for someone who's 6'4". To everywhere I've traveled, everybody has houses that has doors that are basically for people who are 6 foot or 6'4", so they can walk through. So
right.
that to me is consensus reality, because everybody is under basically 6 foot
But
4.
they're not.
Exactly, but that's how the consensus reality is built,
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
that's
think
how
of
I
it as more of if I jump off a cliff and hit the bottom, I'm going to die. There's a consensus that is true. But the consensus could change to if I jump off a cliff, I'm going to fly to the next cliff.
right.
So the collective believes you will die. And so that means it's more likely to happen because it's hard to shake that belief. Just like the collective believed that you couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes until someone
Right.
did it, and now the collective believes something differently. That's how I see consensus reality. You're
Well,
consenting to the limitations that you want to operate within this structure, and and those limitations become greater or lesser probably in direct proportion to the collective consciousness, the ability of each person to connect to source.
right. Well, we're getting more and more tangential. This is brought up what I was thinking about that I talked to you about law versus principles. And now actually there are laws that are like a biblical a or a higher idea, like the law of gravity, If you jump off a cliff, you're going to die. That's the law of gravity. But the principle is that birds can fly. So therefore, you know, there are no laws in nature. This is just my point. There are no laws in nature. There are only principles. And rather than have these ideas that are absolute and can't be changed, those are laws, turn it into principles.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, calling it the law of gravity does make it pretty cement when it isn't maybe so much. And we can't see past our current like existence to see that other civilizations have experienced things different than us. They've had different rules of the collective, as it would seem. I mean, how the hell did they build the pyramids? We cannot conceive of how that's possible in the current paradigm. That's the point, right? But
Right.
some they're there, right? They didn't just fucking magically appear. And so we based off of these clues that we have, I think it becomes apparent that the consensus can shift and change and it's a moving target. And so the conspiracy is to expand the consciousness so we can experience something different that is better from our current perspective, right?
Right. Right.
And and so that's what we're here to do. We're here to spread that conspiracy and experience something that will blow our own minds because that sounds fun. I want to do that. I want to keep doing that, I should say,
Well,
and expand it out into the field more.
this was a quote in my book, but my one of my best friends ever was this guy named from Hackensack named Remo Montella, and he died of cancer. God bless him. But his quote in the book was, or his quote to me was, he said, "Do you know why I find you so attractive, Dale?" I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because of your ability to shatter reality."
Yeah,
So,
same. I agree. I agree. Because like it's so freeing to sort of detach from like the rules and what is makes sense and what is logical and all that bullshit. Like let's get delusional. And you know, you've lived in that space for huge parts of your life, and so yeah, I kind of I think we can all learn something from that. That's my point.
well, I appreciate it, and I guess that's a good place to stop. And been a great pleasure. I'll put the information about Live Love and the information on YouTube, and I'm also working on my link tree, but I'm not going to get caught up in that. It's time to go, and thank you very much, Andrew. It's been as ever edifying and enlightening, and I hope as much for you as it has been for me, and as much for the audience too. And just remember, we're live 2 o'clock next Wednesday. That's the 24th of September. We're going to kick off Fred Year Zero.
Heck yeah, zero AF, y'all. We love you guys.
Have a great one. Bye bye.